A couple of months ago, I wrapped up a project with a super interesting company that I did basically a branding project for and also a website. And since the project has been public a couple of months ago, I want to take the time today to kind of showcase the work to you and explain the process that I went over doing it and mostly how I presented it to the client. So, the company is called Saver One. Basically, what this company does is that they have very unique technology that's being installed inside cars, and it kind of detects if the driver is trying to use the mobile phone for something like texting. If you don't know, then texting while driving is probably the biggest problem and kind of cause of death in car accident. It's like, I think the stats are something like 25% of all car accidents are related to mobile phones. So it's a huge epidemic worldwide. And this company is actually, their vision is to actually save lives with their system. So, a lot of companies have this cliche of where we're trying to make the world a better place, but these people actually get up in the morning and, trying to save lives. So this company has a huge vision, which really attracted me, and they're really wonderful people doing great work, and it was a pleasure to work with them. Now, this type of company is called B2B company, which means business to business, because they are not selling their system to what's called consumer, but they are trying to work with other businesses such as car fleets, insurance companies, and governments to implement the system in the cars of drivers. And so they operate differently, and it's more, I would say B2B companies are always more serious because they are selling to, again, managers, CEOs, and people in the government. So those companies they operate differently, and they should act differently, and they should also look and communicate differently. So that's very important to realize and understand when you're trying to brand a company like that and build their website. It's basically what's called corporate or enterprise kind of. Even though they're a pretty young startup, they have to look very solid because they're going to be selling to big companies and big customers. All right, so I'm going to show you now how I approach the branding and the branding presentation that I show them. I usually show two kind of creative directions. I'm only going to show you the selected one right now, but before I show this to you, I want to kind of share a little drama that happened. So in this company, I have a friend working there, and he was kind of the one who brought me into the project. And so once I created the branding and the creative presentation, a few days before I was showing it to the CEO of the company, I wanted to show it to him and get some feedback. And honestly, the feedback was that one of your directions is completely off and they're not going to love it. And it's so great to have an opportunity to get inside knowledge about what's not working in your design work before you actually show it to the client. If you ever get an opportunity to get kind of a feedback before you show it to the final decision maker, this can be super valuable and also a lifesaver. And so I kind of redesigned the different direction in the last few days, which was really stressful. I also did it during the weekend, but eventually it was all for the good because the presentation that I showed up was much better. It was actually the first presentation that they saw was actually version 2, and so I got to present something that is much better. And what I'm showing you right now is actually the second version, the improved version that they saw. And so here's the creative presentation that I showed them. I always start off with kind of the context of what I was thinking about and what I try to keep in mind before I started the creative process. And so here is the vision: to save lives by eliminating once and for all texting while driving accidents, and the mission: to create a technological enforceable solution. So one of the key differentiators of this company is that their solution is permanent and it does not require the driver's cooperation. If you don't put down your mobile and stop using it, there's going to be an alarm sounding. So, and that's very unique, kind of like if you don't put your seatbelt in the car. So that is very unique in that competitive market. And brand attribute, as I told you, because this is a business to business company, they have to be trustworthy and they have to look experienced. The people running the company and the people building the technology are very experienced. And so this also has to be communicated with how the brand look like. It cannot be too young, too cool, too trendy, because they, again, have to look solid. All right, so the first direction, and this was actually the selected direction, I always like to give names to the creative direction. I feel like it's putting context around the idea that I'm about to show. In this direction, I called it Embrace Safe Driving. And I even put here the kind of dictionary definition of what it is to embrace. So to embrace is to hold somebody closely in your arm, but also to accept and support an idea. And so I think both of these ideas are super relevant to the company because, first of all, you install this system in your vehicle to protect the people you love, your family. A lot of fathers, or parents are, parents to teenagers that are driving and texting and driving, and they're putting the system in their car because they're trying to protect them. And the other meaning, we are trying to change people's behavior, and so we want them to embrace the concept of driving safely. And so the next thing I did was to kind of show in a visualized way what does it look like to embrace. So again, first of all, it's this hug, fatherly or loving hug, but also something like the seatbelt is also kind of wrapping their self around you, embracing you, but also embracing you in a way that protects you. And so I thought this idea and also visual embrace can be a very strong symbol to communicate for the company. And so here's what I did. I said, here, example of the two things that we kind of protect, right? We protect the car, and in a way we protect your mobile phone because it's going to be kind of in a locked mode when you're driving your car. And so I took the letter S from the word Saver One, their name, and I kind of wrapped it around in an embrace around those items. And I kind of came up to something that comes from behind and wraps around. Again, might be a little bit similar to the seat belt or maybe even a no entrance sign, but it's definitely something that's embracing and protecting those elements. And since both of them are in a pretty similar shape, I try to do kind of an abstraction of that and take the shape out, what's called in the design language gestalt, and just remove that shape and make a hole out of it. And then you kind of left out with an S that is pretty unique and memorable, but also you can see that it's in a way protecting either, again, the mobile phone or a car. And I used that symbol, kind of gave it a little bit of color to modernize it, and put it next to the word Saver One, where I used bold and lightweight to kind of differentiate the words Saver and One, because otherwise it might have been called Saverone, or I had to put a space between the words, and I didn't want to use this, or use uppercase and lowercase, and I wanted something very simple and straightforward, and so I used the width of the letter to kind of differentiate between the two words. So basically, this is the kind of logo, the symbol, and the word mark. And I was explaining the rationale for the colors. So I told them we're using blue because it's the color that represents business, expertise, trust, and wisdom. And we're using kind of an orange color because, again, orange is very much associated with with safety, with the helmets, safety helmets or vests and something like that. But it's also a little bit of shade of summer and joy and fun, because this company is obviously, it's a positive company. It's not like a warning company. The rationale for the type, I choose to go with Helvetica, and I kind of show them examples of Helvetica in work. And the reason is because Helvetica is so popular. I know that if you're a designer, you might say, I've seen Helvetica so many times, it's like, it's passé, don't use it anymore. But in that context of a company that needs to look established, needs to look like maybe it's been working for like 10, 15 years, then working with a very, very solid, super famous, super mainstream font like Helvetica, which, check out the middle image. Tons of large companies are using it, kind of gives them not a timeless or kind of, they look pretty established. And so I thought this could be a good fit for them. So again, this is the logo. And the next thing I do is I always show them how this logo would operate in different formats. So this is an example of a business card. This is an example of the website. It was just kind of a mock-up. I'll show you later how the website turned out. But I was just trying to show them how this can work with images and text, how the colors would work in social networks. Obviously, you can see that the S, I think, works pretty well in a profile picture. It works well in small sizes. That was a first mock-up for the lock screen when you're driving, so you're not able to use your phone. I just used a photo of my wife and son because I thought it would be awesome to kind of personalize the lock screen to remind you why you're unable to use your phone, because you're trying to protect the people that you love. Mock-up of the logo in a car. Again, this is the car company, so I thought it would be nice to show kind of the logo in a car context. Obviously, I don't think they're actually going to do this, but they loved it. An exhibition, they're going to be working a lot in conventions and places like this, so I want to show it on an exhibition stand. And I always finish the branding presentation showing an overview image of all the application to kind of give a sense to how the brand would look, again, in different contexts. So this was the first creative direction. There was another one, but they chose this, and I also had the gut feeling that they'll love this because this is a very solid direction. It's not crazy cutting edge new, but this is exactly not what they need. They don't need to look cool and cutting edge, small startup-y from San Francisco. This is not who they are. They are founders in the ages of 40 and 50, and they're selling to big, large companies, and they're meeting with the government all day long. They need to look solid, and that direction completely made sense to them. Now, I know a lot of you think that you show that if the client liked it, then okay, let's go, pay me the money and let's go. But honestly, there are always iterations, and I want to show you they had some feedbacks, and I wanted to show you the presentation I did to show them afterwards with kind of checking small details and stuff like that. So this is the presentation I showed them a couple of weeks ago. It was around refinements and issues that they had with the logo. So on the first meeting, the presentations that I showed you, they had some feedback, and some of them were saying that the S looks a little bit like 8, or that it looks a little bit like a snake, or they're not sure about the orange color. And so I wanted to show them that I did a long process to check those things and come up with kind of an advice of what I think would be the best. So the first thing would do kind of a shape exploration, and I showed them that I tried various things. For example, to do a straight cut of the S and see how long it would be, because if it's too short, if the S is too short, it just looks like a normal S. If the S is too closed down, it looks completely like an 8 or infinity symbol. Or a diagonal cut or a curved cut. As you can see, I did multiple choices, and I told them that those are the ones that I think work the best. Then I showed them the original versus 2 refinements, and then showed what I think are the pros and cons in each of them, and came up with the recommendation. So what I told them that I think that they'd rather be mistaken for an 8 rather than look too much like a normal S, which is too generic. You want your logo to be a symbol that is recognizable, and that pro is more important in my opinion than the con of maybe looking like an 8. As to the snake resemblance, I tried to understand why they think that, and I came up with this symbol of the road of whatever you call this, that's being used usually in health context, of the snake being wrapped around the road. And I told them that even if they have this context is an association with health organizations. Since they are in the business of saving lives, that's not such a bad idea. Then I showed them how I was checking the colors. So I tried multiple things, multiple colors, and kind of degrees of saturations. Show them the original versus something that is a bit more bold. and then show them how this would look like on, all the application. And then I did this, with a blue duotone, with a green, and with a red color. And I told them that my favorite is actually still the blue and orange, but I do admit that a little bit more saturation would make this bolder and stronger. And so we did go with the right option, which is the updated color. So the shape was updated a little bit, the colors were updated a little bit, but overall I showed them the process and I let them see the options and the process that I went through, and they've agreed with all of my recommendations. That was basically the second round of the branding. And now I want to show you the website that I did for them. So basically this is the website. It was built with Webflow. It's a pretty big website, again, corporate website. You can see that the use of the blue and the orange, and it took a lot of both illustration but a lot of images that I used stock photos for, but I try to make them not look so stocky, I guess. There is some interactions like the lines moving here to show the process of how the system works. A lot of images and explanations. I did help them. I kind of made a small movie for the company and helped them to take images of the team and the management team. And as you can see from the footer, this is a pretty big website, lots of pages, and it is also in 2 languages. So it's both in English and in Hebrew. And again, everything was built on Webflow and using the Webflow CMS. So I have here, let me show you. Here are basically the databases. So we have clients, so they will be able to add here clients, kind of referrals of their clients and partners. We have the management team, they'll be able to add people to their team. There's an FAQ, which they can always edit and add questions, and even a blogging system. So one of the great things about working with Webflow in this case was that I actually outsourced the development part. So I designed it in Sketch, and then I sent it over to kind of a junior designer and I've asked him to build this in Webflow, create the interaction, create the mobile version, and then send me over the website. Now, if I would do that on something like WordPress, I would send it to a developer and they would develop it. Once I get it back, and the client wants me to do some fixes, some design fixes, that would be pretty difficult because I'll have to use the developer again and again for every little change that I have to do. If I want to change the layout a little bit or something with the CMS. But in that case, once I got it back from the person who developed it, I could continue doing iteration and updates on the website. And actually, we're still doing updates to the website. It's still not super finished. There are some things that are missing there, but doing a big website is always a long process. Overall, this was a super fun project to work with. Again, I love working with companies and brands that I think are trying to do something meaningful and helpful in the world. So it was great to help them on their very important mission. And I don't usually work with big B2B companies, so that was a different experience for me from a design standpoint, and I enjoyed it. All right, that was a long talk. Hope you found it helpful, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.